Have you ever wondered why your body sometimes recoils from love, even when your mind is aching for it? You've done the work, painstakingly, patiently. You've set boundaries, faced the ghosts of your childhood, and untangled the knots of old wounds. On paper, you've checked every box of what healing is supposed to look like. So why, when affection finally knocks at your door, does a part of you still tense up, as if bracing for impact? Because healing isn't only about learning to say no, it's also about learning how to let love in, to let it settle deep into your bones, without shrinking away. And if that still feels impossible, if your chest still tightens when love shows up, it may mean there's a part of you still hiding from yourself. Let me tell you about Tina. She's 34, sharp-minded, emotionally aware, and has spent years in therapy. She's stopped overgiving. She's broken free from chasing validation. She can see her patterns clearly, set healthy boundaries with confidence, and honor her needs without apology. By every measurable standard, she's healed. But watch what happens when love slips quietly into the room. When her 7-year-old daughter rushes in, eyes glistening, whispering, "Mommy, I'm sorry I was mean earlier." Tina's first instinct isn't to simply receive it. She reflexively answers, "Oh, honey, I'm sorry too," as if love must be matched or returned immediately. When her partner looks at her in the soft morning light and murmurs, "You're so beautiful," she waves it away. "No, I'm not. I look terrible." And when a friend sends a heartfelt message of appreciation, her fingers fly across the phone to minimize it or shift the focus back to them. Her mind knows how to receive love, but her body, her nervous system, still flinches, treating it like a threat. Somewhere deep inside, an old part of her learned that love always came with conditions, expectations, or consequences. And that part is still at the wheel, quietly sabotaging moments of real connection. This isn't happening in her conscious mind. It's older than thought, rooted in the shadow that still believes it's protecting her from something unnamed. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." For many empaths who've walked the path of shadow work, there's a strange fracture that appears. The adult self, the one who has read all the books, sat in countless therapy sessions, mastered the language of healing, plays the role of someone grounded, grateful, and whole. But underneath, the inner child, the one who never felt love without strings attached, still doesn't feel safe. And that's the quiet, aching split at the core of Jung's shadow work. The tension between the self you built to survive and the self you hid in order to be loved. Jung called it the conflict between the persona and the authentic self. The persona says, "I'm healed, I know my worth, I can receive love." But the authentic self, the one who remembers what it felt like to be small, waiting with an aching heart for love that never came freely, whispers, "But what if this love disappears? What if I do something wrong? What if I'm too much?" The split is so subtle you could almost miss it, and yet it quietly shapes everything. It reveals itself in the way you instinctively apologize when someone compliments you, as if being seen as a mistake. In the way you deflect appreciation like it's a hot coal burning in your palms. In the quiet guilt you feel for taking up space, even in relationships where you are wanted and welcome. In the moments when you perform gratitude instead of truly feeling it. You say thank you, but inside your body contracts instead of softening and opening. Jung understood that shadows are not just the dark corners of ourselves we've rejected. They're also the tender parts that never learned they were lovable without performance. For many empaths, the shadow carries not only hidden anger or selfishness, but also the raw, silent terror of being fully seen and then left behind. It's the fear of being known and found lacking, the dread that love could vanish the moment you stop earning it. Maybe you learned early that love had to be bought with goodness, helpfulness, and staying small enough not to disturb anyone's comfort. Your nervous system adapted to survive in a world where affection felt conditional, where every gesture of care came wrapped in invisible contracts, where being too much, too sensitive, too needy, or too emotional meant being too alone. And even now, when real, unconditional love appears, your body doesn't quite know how to digest it. It's like offering a lavish feast to someone who has only ever survived on crumbs. The abundance feels dangerous because scarcity was familiar. Scarcity was safe. Scarcity was predictable and controllable. This is why shadow work for empaths isn't just about honoring anger or setting boundaries. It's about something far more tender and terrifying. It's about learning to trust that you can be fully seen, messy, needy, imperfect, tender, and still be held. It's about believing in your bones that your sensitivity is not a burden to manage, but a gift worth cherishing. So think about it. When was the last time you allowed someone to love you without immediately offering something in return? When did you last let a compliment land without dodging it, minimizing it, or turning the spotlight away? When did you allow yourself to cry, to need, to break open, without apologizing for the very act of being human? The persona wants to master the art of receiving love, smoothly, gracefully, without ripples. But the authentic self, it just wants to know it's safe to be loved at all. It wants reassurance that love will not be withdrawn the moment you stop performing, that you can show up as your raw, unfiltered self and still be wanted. Tina's split revealed itself most vividly in moments of tenderness. When her partner held her after a hard day, her mind could appreciate the comfort, but her body, it would quietly tense. Not because she didn't want to offer comfort, on the contrary, she longed to, but because comfort itself felt dangerous. Every fiber of her being, every cell in her body, carried the memory that tenderness could vanish without warning. She had learned to love others fiercely, wholly, without holding back a single ounce of devotion. Yet allowing others to love her felt like stepping into oncoming traffic with her eyes closed, trusting that nothing would hit her. You know you're supposed to trust, to lean into the warmth being offered, but every instinct deep inside is screaming, danger. Jung called this the transcendent function, the strange and powerful ability to hold two opposing truths at the same time. Tina was slowly learning to breathe both in the same moment. I want love, and love feels dangerous. I deserve care, and care terrifies me. This wasn't contradiction. This was the slow, painstaking work of integration. This was the shadow stepping into the light of awareness. But simply knowing about the split, even naming it clearly, did not magically heal it. Understanding the pattern didn't erase it, because the nervous system doesn't speak the language of theory. It speaks through sensation, through tension in the chest, a tightening in the throat, a sudden urge to withdraw. And Tina's nervous system carried decades of proof that love was not safe for sensitive souls. Here's what almost no one tells you about shadow work. You're not just rejecting them, you're rejecting you. When Tina brushed away a compliment, when she apologized for being apologized to, when she found herself unable to simply let love exist without earning it, this was not mere self-sabotage. This was a deeply ingrained survival pattern. She wasn't pushing love away because she didn't want it. She was pushing it away because a part of her still believed she did not deserve it. And more than that, receiving it fully, without qualification, felt genuinely dangerous. Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But what about everything that terrifies us about receiving love? What door does that unlock? It leads directly to the shadow wound most empaths carry, the belief that love is dangerous. Not love in its essence, but the raw, vulnerable exposure that comes with truly letting it in. The risk of being seen completely and then left. Consciously, you may want love with every part of your being. You may crave it like water after days in a desert, but unconsciously, your nervous system still remembers every time love was taken away because you were too much, too needy, too emotional. It remembers every moment when affection arrived with invisible strings attached. Every instance when you had to perform in order to keep someone's attention. Every painful lesson that being sensitive could mean being alone. And so, now, when a different kind of love appears, the kind that doesn't demand performance, the kind that asks for nothing but your presence, your body still panics. Because if love can arrive without you earning it, it can also disappear without warning. If you don't have to control the flow to keep it, you also can't control when it's gone. And for someone whose early survival depended on reading the emotional weather and adapting instantly, the loss of control doesn't just feel risky, it feels like death. This, this is the shadow speaking through your nervous system. If I let them love me fully, I'll become dependent. If I show them who I really am, the messy, needy, sometimes overwhelming parts, they'll see I'm too much. And if I stop performing, if I stop keeping up the polished version of myself, they'll realize I'm not worth staying for. The shadow isn't protecting you from love itself. It's guarding you from what it believes will be annihilation. The devastating collapse it expects will happen when that love inevitably disappears. Because in your shadow's memory, love always disappears. It always comes with hidden conditions. It always requires performance. But here's what Jung understood that changes everything. The shadow only holds its power when it's unconscious. When you can recognize this pattern, when you notice the way your chest tightens and your breath shortens the moment love arrives, when you can witness the part of you still bracing for abandonment, that's when the real healing begins. Because here's the truth. You're not broken. You're not damaged beyond repair. You're not fundamentally unlovable. What you are is someone carrying a nervous system shaped by an environment where love felt unsafe, where sensitivity was punished instead of honored, where your tender heart had to wrap itself in armor just to survive. And that same nervous system, once a shield, can learn to soften in the presence of genuine care. But it won't happen through willpower alone. It needs evidence. It needs repeated, lived experiences of love that stays. Love that doesn't punish. Love that asks for nothing but your presence, your realness. Love that doesn't require you to twist yourself into a version you think others will accept. Let me tell you what happened when Tina finally saw this pattern for what it was. She was sitting with her partner after another quiet evening of deflecting affection. All day he had shown small, steady gestures of love, making her coffee exactly the way she liked it, sending warm texts that made her smile, brushing his hand gently against her back as he passed through the kitchen. And all day, without even realizing, she had been turning them aside, not coldly, not unkindly, but defensively. Like a starving person being offered food, suspicious it might be poison. That night he looked at her and said something that pierced straight through her defenses. "I feel like you don't believe me when I tell you I love you." Something in Tina broke open, not in a shattering, painful way, but in the kind of break that lets light pour in. She realized he was right. She didn't believe him, not because his words were false, but because love, even now, still felt too good to be true. Every part of her was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. She hesitated, then spoke softly, almost as if speaking to herself. "I think I'm still waiting for you to realize you've made a mistake. I'm waiting for you to see that I'm too much, too sensitive, too needy, too complicated, and then leave." And that was the moment her shadow became conscious. The moment she could see clearly the frightened child within who had learned long ago that love always came with expiration dates, who'd learned over years of quiet survival that being herself was too risky, who'd absorbed the lesson that love was not a given, but something to be earned and re-earned every single day. Then her partner spoke gently, almost cautiously, as if offering something fragile. What if you let me decide what's too much? What if you trusted that I can handle all of you, even the parts you think are too complicated? And in that moment, something inside Tina shifted. It wasn't a dramatic breaking open, no cinematic rush of transformation, but rather the smallest crack in the armor she had carried for so long. A whisper of possibility stirred, a fragile thought that maybe, just maybe, she could be fully known and still be loved. This wasn't the grand finale of her healing journey. It was the beginning of conscious integration, the first step in learning how to work with her shadow instead of being silently ruled by it. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Tina's darkness wasn't cruel, malicious, or broken. It was simply terrified. And fear, when met not with judgment, but with deep compassion, has a way of softening at the edges. But what set this moment apart from all her previous attempts at healing was this. She didn't try to fix the terror. She didn't rush to talk herself out of it or wrap it in layers of analysis. Instead, she simply acknowledged it. She turned inward and greeted the fear like an old companion. "I see you," she whispered to the part of herself that trembled. "I see how hard you've worked to keep us safe. I see how you learned that love was conditional, unpredictable, and dangerous. Thank you for protecting us," she continued silently. "But we're going to try something different now. This is what Jung called active imagination, the conscious engagement with the unconscious parts of ourselves. Not with the aim of erasing them, but of weaving them into the whole, not to overpower or silence them, but to include them as honored voices in the healing process." Tina began to realize that her shadow had never truly been her enemy. It had been her protector, its vigilance forged in the times when love could not be trusted. But now, in a relationship with someone capable of holding her complexity without flinching, her shadow had the chance to learn something new. It could discover that vulnerability did not always lead to abandonment, that being seen in all her messiness did not inevitably result in rejection. Those who walk the empath's path and heal deeply understand this truth. Your protective patterns are not shameful defects to be erased, but adaptive responses that once kept you alive. They deserve respect even as you begin to outgrow them. And the real shift? It doesn't come from endlessly analyzing the pattern or building elaborate strategies to override it. It comes when you stop trying to force it into submission and instead learn how to sit with it, to breathe alongside it, to let it be part of you without letting it run the show. For weeks after that conversation, Tina carried this new awareness like a seed in her pocket. She found herself catching moments when she began to deflect love, and in those moments she would pause, swallow the reflex to push it away, and simply say thank you instead. She'd practice accepting compliments in the right way, rehearsing responses that sounded gracious. She'd remind herself not to apologize for taking up space, even in moments when the old instinct tugged at her. She'd try to receive love the way she imagined healed people were supposed to receive it, calmly, openly, without flinching. But forced receiving isn't really receiving at all. It's just another performance, another act on the same old stage, another attempt to prove, subtly and silently, that she was good enough to deserve love. It became another mask of the Carl Jung Shadow, where even healing itself morphs into a costume to wear, a standard to meet, a role to perfect. The real turning point arrived when Tina stopped trying to receive love correctly and began simply noticing what happened inside her body when love appeared. She stopped measuring herself against an imagined ideal and started letting herself feel the raw, unfiltered reality of what it was like to let love exist in the space between herself and another person without rushing to do something about it. When her daughter looked up at her and said, "I love you," Tina resisted the automatic, almost reflexive, "I love you too." She paused. She noticed the way those words landed in her chest, warm but also startling. She became aware of her immediate urge to bounce the love back, to reciprocate instantly, to prove she was equally invested, to secure her place in that delicate moment of tenderness. And instead of fighting that impulse or giving into it, she simply stayed with it. She allowed the "I love you" to linger in the air, unhurried before responding. She let herself experience what it felt like to be loved without immediately performing love in return. It was terrifying, so much so that it felt selfish, wrong, and almost unbearably exposing. Every part of her was screaming to give something back immediately, to earn her place in that fleeting connection. But she stayed. She breathed. She let the love land without shrinking away from it. And then something almost miraculous happened. Her daughter didn't disappear. The love didn't dissolve into thin air. The world didn't crumble because she allowed herself a moment of stillness to simply receive. This is what Jung meant when he spoke about the transcendent function, the capacity to hold two opposite truths in the same breath. Tina could feel terrified of love and open to it at once. She could feel unworthy and beloved in the same heartbeat. She could feel the urge to perform and the quiet longing to simply be, both alive in her, neither canceling the other out. Shadow work, she realized, wasn't about erasing her fear of love as if it were a flaw to be removed. It was about staying present with that fear while love unfolded anyway. It was about discovering that she could feel afraid and still let herself receive. That fear and love could live side by side in her nervous system without one destroying the other. Because here's what Tina learned through this slow, tender practice. Love doesn't need you to receive it perfectly. Love doesn't ask you to earn it, prove you deserve it, or reciprocate instantly. Love only asks that you don't run from it while it's happening. And when you can do that, when you can let love exist without rushing to control it, return it, or shrink it down into something less threatening, something quietly miraculous begins to happen. Your nervous system, once conditioned to brace for impact, slowly starts to learn that love can arrive without danger, that you can be fully seen and still remain safe, that you can take up space in someone's heart without apologizing for it or working tirelessly to keep your place there. Tina began testing this in the smallest, most ordinary moments of her days. When a coworker complimented her work, instead of reflexively deflecting with a joke or instantly redirecting the praise, she'd pause. She would feel the words settle in her chest, notice the familiar pull to minimize or reciprocate, and sometimes, not always, she would simply say thank you and allow that to be enough. When her partner's hand reached for hers during a quiet moment in a movie, she didn't instantly squeeze back or shift away. Instead, she lingered in the touch, letting herself truly feel what it was like to be chosen in such a simple, unspoken way. To be reached for, to be wanted without needing to earn it. When her friend sent a message of gratitude for their friendship, her fingers would hover over the keyboard, ready to type an even bigger appreciation in return. But instead, she read the words slowly, let them sink into her, felt what it was like to be valued without having to immediately prove she valued them back. Each of these tiny, unassuming practices was rewiring something deep within her. They were teaching her nervous system an entirely new truth, that love could be received without being returned in the very same breath, that she could be cared for without instantly caretaking back, that someone could give to her without her needing to balance the scales right away. And this, she realized, wasn't selfishness. It wasn't taking advantage of people's kindness. It was learning to trust the natural flow of love, that what she received fully could eventually flow through her, back into the world, not from a sense of debt or obligation, but from a place of genuine fullness. As Jung once said, your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens? Tina was awakening to something she had never dared to believe before, that she had always been worthy of love, that her sensitivity was not a flaw to control or conceal, but a rare gift to be protected and treasured, that her deep feelings were not too much for the right people. But this awakening didn't arrive in a single lightning bolt moment. It unfolded quietly, in breaths, in pauses, in the smallest of choices to stay present with love instead of turning away from it. And maybe, just maybe, that's where you find yourself right now. Reading these words and recognizing pieces of yourself in Tina's story. Feeling that old familiar tension between craving love and fearing it. Wondering if someone as sensitive as you can truly let love in. Here is what I want you to remember. Your sensitivity is not a wall keeping love out. It's a bridge, one that can lead you to the deepest, most nourishing love you've ever known. And the same nervous system that once learned to protect you from conditional love has the remarkable ability to recognize and receive unconditional love. But it takes practice. It takes patience. And perhaps most of all, it takes the quiet courage to remain present in the middle of discomfort while love is unfolding around you. So if you are listening to this and noticing that familiar reflex to deflect love, to brush off appreciation, to flip compliments back toward someone else, pause with me for just a moment. Take a slow breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet, steady and supportive. Place a hand gently over your heart. That's your nervous system you're feeling. The same system that has worked tirelessly for years to keep you safe. And now, little by little, it's learning that it can soften, that it can rest in the presence of genuine care. Tina's turning point was not some cinematic flash of transformation. There was no grand announcement or sudden breakthrough. Instead, it was built in small, almost unremarkable moments, tiny choices to trust, to stay, to allow love to exist without stepping in to shape it, control it, or return it right away. And here's the truth. That possibility is available to you too. Right here, right now, with the very next person who offers you kindness or shows you care. 6 months later, Tina's relationship with love looked and felt entirely different. Not because she had fixed herself, not because she had silenced her sensitivity or transformed into someone new, but because she had learned to lean into the steady rhythm of being loved exactly as she was. When her partner said, "You're beautiful," she didn't instantly swat the words away with self-deprecation. She also didn't rush to perform gratitude in that rehearsed, overly polite way she used to. She simply let the words arrive. She let them settle into her body like the soft glow of morning sunlight through a window. Warm, unhurried, and unearned. She felt the quiet joy of being seen, appreciated, chosen. And when she responded, whether with a smile or a gentle "thank you," it came from fullness, not from a sense of owing something back. From gratitude, not from debt. When her daughter apologized for something small, Tina resisted the pull to automatically mirror the apology. Instead, she listened closely. She felt the love behind those little words, the courage it took for a child to open up, to admit a mistake, to take that vulnerable step toward repair. Her response came from tenderness, not from an anxious urge to make everything perfectly even in the moment. This, Tina learned, is what Jung called individuation, the unfolding process of becoming who you truly are, rather than the version you've been taught to be. For empaths, individuation often carries a very specific lesson, that it is possible to be loved without instantly performing love back, that you can be cared for without reflexively caretaking in return, that you can reveal your tears, your softness, your open heart without apologizing for them. It is the understanding that you are not too much for those who genuinely see you, that your needs are not an inconvenience to the people who love you, that your sensitivity is not a flaw to be managed or hidden away. It is a part of you that can be honored, supported, even celebrated. And so, Tina began to receive love the way you receive sunlight, not by earning it, not by dissecting it, not by instantly bouncing it back, but by allowing it to touch her fully, by trusting, without condition, that she was worthy of warmth, not because of what she could offer in return, but simply because of who she was. Because sensitivity, depth, and emotional intelligence are gifts this world desperately needs, treasures that too often go unnoticed or unappreciated. The inner child that had been hiding for so long, the one who never truly learned she was lovable without conditions, finally began to relax. Not because the world had suddenly transformed into a perfectly safe place, but because Tina had discovered how to cultivate a sense of safety from within. She realized she could hold the strange paradox of feeling deeply loved and deeply afraid at the same time, and that both emotions could coexist without canceling each other out. She came to understand that her nervous system's protective responses were not enemies to be crushed or weaknesses to be erased, but loyal companions that had worked tirelessly to keep her alive. Instead of fighting them, she began to honor them. She started speaking inwardly to that protective part of herself with the same tenderness she would offer a frightened child. "I know you're scared," she would whisper silently whenever love appeared, and her body instinctively tightened. "I know love has felt dangerous for so long, but we are safe now. We can allow this love in. We can receive help." This was the final stage of shadow work for empaths, not just surviving love, but learning to enjoy it, to bask in the glow of appreciation without instantly deflecting it, to rest in care without feeling compelled to immediately caretake in return, to take up space in someone's heart without the exhausting belief that you must re-earn your place there every single day. To be chosen simply because you are you, sensitive, feeling, tender, and yes, sometimes overwhelming, and to be loved for that depth, not despite it. She realized she was allowed to need tenderness, to long for care, to crave understanding. She was allowed to be human. Receiving love was not selfish. It was sacred. And each time Tina let love truly land without pushing it away, she wasn't only healing herself. She was sending a quiet but powerful message to the world that sensitive people are worthy of being nourished, not only of giving endlessly, that empaths are meant to be filled, not just emptied, that those who feel everything deserve to be held in their feeling, not told to suppress it. So let yourself be loved without instantly giving love back. Let yourself be seen without slipping into performance. Let yourself receive without rushing to reciprocate. Let yourself need without apologizing for needing. This, she learned, is when the shadow work has reached its deepest healing, when love transforms from something you must endure into something you can fully inhabit, when tenderness feels less like stepping into danger and more like coming home, when being truly known brings relief instead of panic. The empaths who master this art of receiving love without guilt or performance become quiet beacons for other sensitive souls. They stand as proof that it is possible to remain tender in a world that can be sharp. They are living evidence that sensitivity is a superpower, not a weakness. They are reminders, embodied in breathing, that the world needs our depth, our capacity to feel, our ability to love without limits. As Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For empaths, that often means learning that who you truly are is someone worthy of love without performance, someone who does not have to prove their value through constant effort or achievement. It is realizing that you deserve to be embraced for simply existing without needing to hide your truth or reshape yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. Someone worthy of care without earning it, whose sensitivity is a gift rather than a burden. a rare and precious quality in a world that often misunderstands it. Yet as Carl Jung's concept of shadow work reminds us, the journey toward becoming your authentic self is far from a straight road. Shadow work doesn't end when the bleeding from old wounds stops. It doesn't end when you finally learn to set healthy boundaries, honor your needs, or confidently say no to the things that drain your spirit. It continues quietly, subtly, until the moment you stop blocking the light from new love. It reaches a turning point when you can truly let love in, even when it feels unusual, even when it feels almost too good to be true, even when every instinct in you whispers to deflect it, to earn it, or to immediately give it back. The next time someone offers you love, whether through tender words, steady presence, or the simplest acts of care, notice what stirs within you. Do you feel the urge to downplay it, to change the subject, or to rush into giving something in return just to even the scales? Pause for a moment. Breathe. Let yourself feel what it is like to allow love to simply exist between you and another person without taking any action to adjust it. Feel what it's like to be appreciated without rushing to appreciate back, to be cared for without instantly caretaking in return. Let love land in your heart without shrinking away from it. Allow yourself to be seen in your fullness without putting on a performance. Let yourself be cared for without turning it into an exchange that must be balanced. This isn't about selfishness or taking advantage of another's kindness. It's about trusting the natural current of love, that what you receive wholeheartedly will eventually flow outward again, but from a place of abundance rather than obligation. This is how you come home to yourself, not by becoming someone more deserving of love, but by remembering that you have always been worthy of it. Even the parts of you that feel too much, even the pieces still learning to trust, even the corners of your soul that tremble at the thought of being seen completely. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is the part of you that learned how to survive in a world that felt unsafe for sensitivity. It is the quiet guardian that shielded your tender heart when no one else would. And now that shadow can soften. It can learn to rest. It can begin to trust that there are people in this world who will value your depth, not punish it. So let love in, even when it feels unsettling, especially when it feels unsettling. That is often the clearest sign it is real. That is when you know you have found the kind of love that can hold all of you. The light and the shadow, the strength and the tenderness, the healing and the still healing parts. They all exist within you, shaping the intricate landscape of your soul. Your sensitivity is not too much for the right people. In fact, it is a rare and precious quality that draws in those who can truly meet you where you are. Your depth is not a burden to those who genuinely see you for who you are. Your need for tenderness is not weakness. It is a sign of your humanity, the most natural and essential part of being alive. Can we not all relate to that yearning for gentleness in a world that often feels so harsh? If this resonates with you, pause for a moment and breathe deeply. Place your hand on your heart and feel the quiet truth beating there. Feel your own tenderness, that soft yet steady place within. You are not broken, nor are you damaged beyond repair. You are simply in the process of remembering how to trust love again, even when the memory of hurt still lingers. You are learning step by step that you can be fully yourself, with all your shadows and scars, and still be held with care. And perhaps, isn't that the most courageous thing anyone can do? To let themselves be loved without shrinking, without hiding? Exactly as you are, shadow and light together in this tender, complicated, beautiful human form you've been given.